So, first things first, guys. How are you?
Good.
Very well. Happy
Refreshed.
to be here in Amsterdam.
Well, happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, before we get into the latest record, I'd like to jump back a little bit. And I believe you are based in Seattle, and obviously Seattle is a big music town, a very, very healthy music scene.
Yes, yes.
How does Seattle affect what you do?
It does in a few ways. I think just that indie culture that lives there right now, folk has always been really prevalent, and that's, I think, just like a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, acoustic, musicians, stuff like Bon Iver really like is very popular, and I think also just the actual weather alone, it causes us to sit inside more in general, and just like I think that sometimes can breed creativity in its own way, because you're kind of forced to mess around with the different instruments in your room or your basement, wherever you're working.
Yeah, and then I think also because we have a bunch of friends that listen to indie music, and we've kind of grown up around that, being in that area. And I think we're really attracted to organic instrumentation, and so we use a lot of it in our production. And so I think, I don't know if we're even like aware of it, but in a subconscious way, we're really attracted to kind of blending the synthetic and organic sounds and using production to take something organic and make something very, different out of it. Reversing it or doing whatever you can to make, something that sounds natural, sound unique, and in some way, yeah.
And well, obviously Seattle is known for Kurt Cobain, grunge.
Yeah, of course.
How has electronic music kind of seeped into the culture, and how have you seen it develop in the past year?
Seattle's, well, it's at its early stages for Seattle, that's for sure. So there's a couple clubs that kind of do quite a bit of work, but there's not a lot of venues that really promote electronic music, and we were kind of at the beginning of it, and hopefully we can kind of bring more light in that way to the Seattle electronic music scene and really kind of help give back to it a little bit, because we'd love to. It's such a great city for music. I think electronic music would definitely come out strong there for sure.
And if we jump back a little bit more, Harrison, you mentioned that it can be somewhat of a solitary thing because it rains a lot, and especially early on, and maybe even before you met each other. Was it making music a very solitary thing?
Yeah, we kind of both were making music on our own for a little while. I think what was solitary was the fact that the music we were trying to make, it was so new at the time, there wasn't a lot of people making it. And where we went to school, about an hour and a half north of Seattle, it was a lot of people like just playing guitar and singing in bands. And when we would try to work on music or collaborate with other people, they didn't really get, like, why are you pitching this up? Why are you doing this to my instrument? And it was kind of tough to collaborate. So when we met, it was just kind of this really like feeding off each other's energy. We both were showing each other music, and we were into a lot of the same things. So I think, it was a pretty like instant chemistry with that.
Did you have a vision of what you wanted to do, or was it very much trial and error in the beginning?
Oh yeah, a lot of trial and error. Like there was really, like we were both into a lot of the same music, and that's kind of how we met and kind of bonded off the bat. Was like we were really into, especially at the time, more eclectic electronic stuff, like big huge fans of Fortet and kind of Boards of Canada, Animal Collective. We love those kind of the mesh of indie and electronic worlds, and so that was kind of the sound we started with, and I think we just we're sharing music back and forth, and just met up one day and really started just kind of collaborating. We just set up our computers and kind of started bouncing ideas back and forth, and that's what kind of led to our first project. But there was no real goal when it first started.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, it was always just a hobby. Like I was gonna go to grad school. I had things lined up for that. He had a design job that I was looking after. So it was always just kind of a hobby that we thought maybe we'd do a couple shows, a couple gigs, and that would be it. But it just never stopped.
We stayed on tour for like 3 years.
When did the hobby get out of hand, so to say?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, we just never came home. We were just like, we went out on our first tour, and while we were on that tour, we got offered another tour, and that just kept happening for a couple of years. And we made an EP and an album pretty much on the road that entire time. And then when we finished that, we put it out and went back out on the road. So it was like a pretty intense couple of years. But we learned a lot. Just from the people we were with, and also just playing music out, we learned a lot about. I think that's why we've developed our live show so much, is because we played it for so long. We kept wanting to make it more interesting, and so it's always been something that's really important to us.
Yeah, what is one thing you found out then about playing live and how people react to certain things?
Yeah, well, I mean, our first shows, so we started out, we had Summer's Gone, this album, which was kind of a houseier album, but still very laid back. So, our first sets, we were trying to basically just play these songs that we had. And we realized, early on that, especially in a live setting, you got to keep the energy up, especially for an electronic show. If you're not performing an instrument or singing vocals, you got to keep the energy going, and it's got to be a little more dancey than just kind of like a band could do in some way. So we learned really fast how to kind of rewrite our material to keep up the energy. So like slow songs that we had on the album, we would remix and rework to give them a little more energetic feel in that setting. So they make, maybe a little more housey, maybe a little more, trappy at times, just to give it a little more oomph in that setting and not put people to sleep, because that's...
Yeah, just understanding the setting people are taking in music. For an album, a lot of the time, you have your headphones on and you're riding the bus or something. Whereas when you're in a group of people, it's more about connection, and I think creating a vibe and hopefully creating that energy there.
Yeah. But in that sense then, I suppose mood or the atmosphere of a song is very important either for live or for the album. So did it always, and then this is just the way I see it, but did it always have that scenic or visual character to it for you?
Yeah, I think, definitely from the beginning, him being design background, our visual guy, comes from design background, and the music embodies a lot of cinematic elements.
Right.
We've always been fans of scores, film scores, so I think, subconsciously there's always been this underlying tone of cinematic music kind of in the background, and we love those those big landscapes of sound that you can kind of create with those tones and whatnot.
Also, something interesting that I just started thinking about like last week is this generation really grew up on music videos. Sure. It's not as important really anymore, but like we used to watch MTV for music videos, and they were really powerful. Some of them, I remember Aphex Twin had some insane ones. They were short films. And those were really impactful for me. I used to like record them on my VCR and rewatch them a bunch.
When TRL played music.
Back in the days when MTV played music. Yeah. But in that sense then, because, well, what that requires, does that require you to be in a certain mood then when you write the song?
The writing process for us, you definitely have to be in that headspace. So us being on the road all the time is really hard to write. Right. It's really hard to get in that creative headspace. So like for this last album, for example, we were able to get off the road, come home, and it took us like a month of just kind of unplugging, listening to music, and going back to, I don't know what they're blowing up out there, but listening to music and kind of unplugging and refreshing our creative headspace to get in that vibe.
Because we went on that writing trip.
Yeah, we went on a writing trip, kind of escaped and we like to go back to old albums we, fell in love with when we first started making music. So kind of get re-inspired by those ideas again.
Can you name me a couple that...
Yeah, I go back to Kid A by Radiohead a lot. I really liked the Gorillaz' first album. The Gorillaz were really impactful for me because I think something we really love and try to embody is crossing genres, and I think electronic music is an incredible platform for that. It's able to twist and bend and be all these different things while still staying in this realm. What other albums? Yeah,
so like I remember specifically Merriweather Post Pavilion by Animal Collective was like this genesis of electronic music with these really cool indie vocals, and that was super inspiring, and that's one I try to go back to and listen to, and there's just like this perfect balance of pop elements with very unique sounds that I think got me really inspired and really turned on the creative. That got me into making music and electronic music specifically. Were those, and like a couple Fortet Pause I think is one I always go back to. Bonobo, Boards of Canada,
Flying Lotus,
LA. Flying Lotus, LA. That's just there's just those kind of classic early 2000, even like MGMT, that kind of stuff was hugely invigorating and kind of gave, like that whole generation of music, I think kind of got lost a little bit. And I would love, it's like one of my favorite times in music.
Tame Impala is kind of bringing it back
Tame
too.
Impala, exactly. There's glimpses of it I hear coming into modern music, which I'm really excited about. So I hope we can kind of reinvigorate that, 2000 to 2010 era of music that was so really just fun. Indie had all these unique vibes, but it had enough energy to kind of carry it through.
This might be a very difficult question then, but why do you think that got overshadowed?
Man, that's good. That is a good question. How
That sound? I think electronic music got too popular.
Yeah.
And then with everything, the most commercial thing becomes the most popular thing. And then so heavier, bigger EDM got really big. And then it kind of just overshadowed that, and festivals became this thing that everyone went to, and I think it just became a whole scene, and that overpowered it. But I see that getting overpowered now.
Right.
So it's just a cycle. Everything kind of changes.
But I miss it. Like when MIA was hot, like those early years, Santa Gold, that kind of indie electronic sound. LCD was part of that in some way. So I think hopefully it can kind of resurge and reemerge.